Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and tonight I am joined by two of our usual co-hosts, Jason and Unclemarc. Say hi.
Yay!
Yay.
Hi.
Yay. We're the pretty ones.
You're the pretty ones?
We're the pretty ones. That's in honor of the passing of Ned Beatty, who was told he has a pretty mouth.
Oh.
In Deliverance.
Okay.
Classic.
I wasn't
Ned
aware.
Beatty passed away.
I wasn't aware
Sad.
that he passed away.
Last week, I think.
We're going to talk later about someone else notable that passed away.
Yeah.
Although people have
interesting
opinions as to how notable he is.
Oh, he's notable. But,
Oh yeah,
you know.
I'm telling you, someone should make a movie about his life. But anyway, that's not our main topic for tonight, even though it probably could be. Sorry, I'm also working on tweaking some stuff in the stream.
That's okay. Take your time. Steam is having a sale.
Do it. Oh, it's time for...
Right. Just before we go live, Jason's like, the Steam Summer Sale has started. So I'm like, ugh.
Now they're both
look.
looking to buy games.
I'm just curious.
I have so many games I own that I have yet to even launch. It would be I wouldn't say it's a war crime if I buy more games, but it's certainly not a wise decision. But you know I'm going to look.
It's a crime against gaming, is that what you're
look.
saying?
Something like, I might play this one day.
I may someday play this game.
And then I just launch Valheimer Flight Simulator, you know?
Oh, hey,
right.
That came out for my computer.
My
Might have
God.
to get that.
Jason's going to be distracted the whole time tonight.
No, I like going in and seeing if any of these games that I put on, because I put pretty much anything on my wish list. and
Yeah.
most of them are Windows games that I can't play. So
See, I have that problem
Um,
with Jeep parts and camera gear. Except it's an Amazon wish list and not.
you keep putting Jeep parts on your list that don't work on your Jeep?
No, I put Jeep parts
That
on my
explains
list.
a lot of things, like that door that stopped working.
It cost a
when I
lot of
was in the
money.
vehicle.
And
Oh,
some
no.
of them might not work on my Jeep, but then I figured out how to make them work on my Jeep, and then, that's a whole other
Well,
thing.
I guess technically I could play the Windows games if I installed Windows on my machine or got a Windows machine. Either way, that feels too expensive to me.
Jay Scar says give all your money to Steam. That is true. Anyway,
You could spend some
tonight,
money on worse things.
so if you guys tuned in for our last episode, you might remember that I went on for an hour about my history, how I got into IT, and, maybe went a little too far back, telling you how I learned the alphabet on a freaking TI in my parents' living room. This week, you guys all asked for it. Well, a lot of you, folks that are active in our Discord community and even folks on social media that commented and whatnot, they want to hear Uncle Marc's story. So
Y'all are insane.
Yeah. So, Jason, you better get ready because there's going to be a future episode, unless you're totally opposed to this, where you're going to be put on the spot. So tonight we're going to hand the reins over to Uncle Marc, and he's going to tell us, I'm assuming in song form, how he got into IT. And
Hang on.
We're
All right.
We're gonna stick to regular speaking.
There's
Good. I don't.
No,
Okay, I was gonna
there's
say
gonna be
I need to find the mute button.
no interpretive dance or anything.
No interpretive dance. No
Okay.
interpretive dance.
Well, that's one thing you haven't done yet on the show. So
No one wants to see that.
Maybe that's a good
I
thing.
suspect that people really don't like the singing, but we're definitely not doing interpretive dance. Yeah.
So yeah, Marc, take it away. I don't know where you want to start. I mean, we haven't rehearsed any of this, so
No, we haven't. So what I'm fond of doing is pointing at the Apple II behind me and saying, hey, that's my dad's best friend's old Apple II that he bought when I was in 7th grade. And that's how I first got into this. But that's actually not completely true.
Back in the day when
back in the day.
dinosaurs walked the earth
and the Apple II was new.
and Mark was already old.
Yeah, back when Jesus was riding velociraptors around, stuff like that. My first
With lasers?
well, velociraptors
Okay.
with lasers. That's the only way
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I actually was intrigued originally by all things technological, especially electronics and whatnot. So I would occasionally, on at least one Christmas, I got a Radio Shack electronics kit, the one with the little springs where you would put the wires in, and like there'd be a spring on either side of a resistor.
Those like 101
springs on the
projects in
capacitor.
one.
Yeah, the projects kit, right?
I had
So
one
my
of those.
first actual computer, I'm going to link the YouTube video in the Twitch chat. That is the actual first computer I owned, which was the Tandy digital computer kit.
Nice.
It had these sliders that basically were switches, and you could do logical circuits with them, and you slid this plasticky thing across the top, and there were lights behind it. That I found this YouTube video of a lady who's a serious, she does a lot of her own projects and whatnot, and she actually restores one of these. But this Tandy thing was the first computer, we'll air quote it, that I actually owned. So, but the first real computer was the Apple II. And that. So my dad's friend Everett got that Apple II when I was in 7th grade. My dad actually bit the bullet and bought an Apple II my freshman year in high school. And it was funny because back in the 80s, it was like you had this whole class warfare thing going on. Like we were the Apple family, and then I had a lot of friends who like couldn't afford an Apple, so they'd get the Commodore 64 or the VIC-20. Like I had an Apple, my friend Jack had an Apple, and then I had some other friends and stuff who had to go with the Commodores because they were less expensive. But it was a fantastic time, man.
And that was the start, really, of the platform wars, right?
That was a platform war, I think, right? Purely driven by the economics.
I mean, I can remember in the mid '90s, or I guess early '90s, when I started to tinker with computers. That was still a thing, right? It was still very much an argument, Apple versus PC. I mean, it still is today, I guess. Sort of
There,
like Apple
that
versus Android.
that argument, the Mac versus the PC, is one of the longer running nerd wars, followed by obviously Linux versus Windows.
And preceded
Although
by Star
Mac,
Wars versus Star Trek.
yeah,
VI versus Emacs.
yeah, but Mac versus PC is the one that your average normal person probably stands the biggest chance in knowing in terms of the tech stuff. I mean, Star Trek versus Star Wars. I think of the Taco Bell commercial. Why not both? And then Battlestar Galactica enters the chat.
I agree. There's a perfectly great line from the Dresden Files. Jason, I don't know if you remember the line, but what was it? This is the post-nerd era. You can like both now.
You're allowed. So, of course, the Apple II, it's funny because yesterday Red Hat sponsored a coffee hour where we talked to Steve Wozniak. They interviewed Steve Wozniak, and there was actually Q&A from the audience. That was kind of really cool. So watching that live was a bit of a nerdgasm. But the question was asked, what do you think the early personal computer revolution would have looked like with open source, if it had been open source? And Steve made a really good point. The Apple II shipped with manuals that had not only the schematics for the Apple, but the machine language code for the monitor, which is basically what was the BIOS. The program was called the monitor, and it was what essentially ran the whole computer. And most of the programs, at least at the beginning, were written in BASIC, which by its nature, the source code is right there. You bought an AppleSoft program and you loaded it from either disk or tape, and you could just do a list, and you could see how the program worked. It was not that easy to obfuscate. So I actually grew up in an era where the first computer stuff I learned was you had to know how the thing actually worked. You had to pick up at least a little bit of programming to get anything done. And that was just part of the deal. You learned BASIC, you learned commands. The first DOS was the disk operating system for the Apple with the floppies, not MS DOS. So Apple DOS was the first DOS I learned. And everything was just shared. You had computer magazines that would have programs printed in them, and you'd sit there and meticulously type them in and try not to make typos. And if you did, the programs would crash. Hopefully, three quarters of the way through typing the program in, the computer didn't get shut off or crash because you forgot to save it to floppy or to cassette. Good times. Good times.
Good times indeed.
So I don't want to spend too much time in the formative years, but essentially, as I rolled into high school, they started to have computer classes, and they were based on the Apple, and the programming language that we really were focusing on was Pascal, which was compiled. You'd write the source code in Pascal, run it through the compiler, and produce a binary. And those binaries, by the way, if you ever played Wizardry, or if you ever played Galactic Attack, which were two pretty popular games, those were written in Pascal, shipped as a binary. Those were not open source. But me and my best friend Jack, we were in the same grade. We took the first computer science course when they were offering it to juniors or seniors. I think we were freshmen at the time. I took the AP Comp Sci exam, I think as a sophomore or junior, and got a 5 on it. And one of my first jobs was teaching computer classes at the adult school that was run by the Toms River school system. So this was when you really had to learn the computer stuff to even do anything with your own computer. So middle-aged people would walk into the classroom that was filled with Apple IIs, and this squeaky teenage boy with a really bad scruffy beard, aka me, would be standing at the front of the room saying, "I'm Mark, I'm your teacher." I can't even drive yet. You know, I didn't say that. Well, actually, I had the job for a couple of years. But I had this job before I had a driver's license, and I made pretty good money teaching adult school. It was fun.
It's funny. I didn't include that in mine, but I also taught adults in high school. But it wasn't specific to like programming or anything like yours. This was at the tech school that I went to.
Right. Well,
We
this
would-
was teaching. Yeah, this was teaching word processing.
Yeah.
It was teaching. It was teaching like some DOS stuff. We had a night where we'd fire up the print shop and we'd print out cards and banners and stuff. It was like an overview of all the different things a personal computer could do. I think at
The
that
print
point,
shop.
VisiCalc was a thing, so I'd show them how to do spreadsheets. It was a fun course, and once they got, and some of them, I don't think I ever had anyone upset that their teacher was a teenage boy, and they actually they grew to appreciate that, like, the computer stuff was a thing for the youth, and they kind of, I think they appreciated me bringing them along on it. It was fun. It was a neat time.
I wasted so much ink and paper of my dad's with the print shop on his Atari.
Oh yeah, the print shop was baller. J Scar, did I ever play with Fortran? There was a Fortran compiler you could get on the Apple, but honestly, Pascal was my Basic and Pascal are the languages I learned. Fortran was like for old fogies that were on mainframes. Personal computers, you were using Basic or Assembly if you were a real god, or Pascal. But Fortran had kind of had was not really applicable at that time on the Apple. So I got into college, went to Rutgers, started as an electrical engineer, and I'm going to be completely honest. I really didn't apply myself, right? I goofed off a little too much, drank a little too much, didn't really do the homework I should have done. So I graduated Rutgers with a degree in English with a focus in creative writing because it was the most subjective thing I could take and still pass. But I had enough credits for a minor in computer science. I ended up.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious, right? You obviously had an aptitude and interest in computers before getting to college, and yet you majored in English?
I started as electrical engineering,
Okay, sorry.
and then
I guess
then
I missed that piece.
Yeah, I was pivoting to comp sci, but the math classes were too hard,
Oh, so all right, I get it now.
and I was lazy. I'm gonna throw that right on the friggin' table. I was too damn lazy.
College is
Like-
a time when kids are sometimes lazy.
My daughter just graduated Seton Hall with chemistry with a perfect 4.0 average. My son just finished his freshman year at Stevens in chemistry with a perfect 4.0. My kids are much better students than I ever was, which is great for them.
You're not, I mean, you're not the only person who works at the level that we work at that I've heard, and not specifically the role we're in or whatever. Folks in IT with experience like the three of us on this show have that have told me they weren't great students. I wasn't a great
No.
student either. I didn't cover that when I talked. I was
Right.
I was like a
again,
straight C student.
and I'm not claiming I have any learning disabilities. I'm not claiming anything was stacked against me.
Yeah.
I was a lazy ass mofo who didn't do the homework and
Yeah.
sometimes didn't go to class too much.
Yeah.
It's self-inflicted, right? But I ended up in Red Hat, so I guess I win.
Yeah, I think it worked out.
Yeah,
I feel like it worked out for me. It might have worked out sooner, I guess, if I had.
maybe.
If I had.
And I wonder, would I have actually been happy as an electrical engineer? And I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe I would have, maybe I would not have. I know I'm happy with how my career panned out to this point. So by the time I got to college, by the way, so my dad used to work in insurance. He worked for Prudential, then he worked for Farm Family. He was an insurance agent, a manager, and the two of us kind of learned the computing stuff together early high school. And he said, "Screw this noise." And he just put a shingle out and became an independent computer consultant because this was the 80s and early 90s, and you could do that.
You could do that.
You could write your own ticket.
There were still
So-
a bunch of those. I mean, I almost went to work for one mid-90s. I was
Yeah.
a teenager and knew more about computers than most adults around me.
So he actually first he started in a partnership with two other dudes, and then he just struck out on his own. and he'd write one of his. I remember helping him. He would pay me. I made a good amount of bank helping him. There were a bunch of car dealers in the Toms River area. We would create programs from scratch where the dealer would type in the customer's information, and it would then print out all that information on the multiple different forms that were required. So some of my first programs that made me money was me in my parents' dining room with a tractor fed printer. The dealers would give us the forms that would feed into them, and figuring out the spacing and everything else to print these forms properly from the computer so they didn't have to be printed by hand. And again, we wrote the basic programs to do all this stuff for these guys. And that was kind of fun. Um, so I had actually made a non-trivial amount of money for a teenager because of computing by the time I got to college. At Rutgers, I worked in the Tillet computer lab, basically doing help desk type work. Although a bunch of us, my friends, worked there, so there were many Friday nights where we'd be playing D&D in the computer lab. And I feel a little bad because we were kind of loud, and students were legitimately trying to get work done. And I remember this scathing story that was in the one campus newspaper that basically complained about the Star Trek computer nerds that were too damn loud and intelligent. So I was a Star Trek computer nerd.
If only you had been a Star Wars nerd, would have been all good.
It was fine. So I got out of college, took a job. My first job out of college was with a small family-run computer business. And it was an interesting little roller coaster ride, and they collapsed as the Gulf War started. Um, I then ended up teaching at a small private technical school in Jersey, where we basically would take people would register who were from like disadvantaged backgrounds. They had been factory workers or laid off or single moms or whatever, and we would teach them word processing, database spreadsheet and stuff like that for them to get computer jobs, entry level computer jobs. And some of my students ended up really doing pretty well. So that was kind of a cool position. Um, but it was a family run business, like the first one that had failed. And working for those two companies taught me, you know what? Working for a family run business is not my bag.
Just because of the instability or the possible strife involved in it?
Yes.
Both.
Instability, strife, and I'm going to say it, nepotism, right?
Okay.
Promises made but not kept, not inconsistent policies, stuff like that. Small businesses are lovely. In many ways, they're the lifeblood of our country,
Mm-hmm.
but too many of them are run completely arbitrary with no real policies or controls or safety nets.
That's how that web host I worked for was run. It was a small business, and the guy that ran the place just basically made up the rules on the fly. It seemed there was an employee handbook, but it felt very much like he was writing it on the fly whenever it didn't suit what he needed to do at the time. So I completely get it.
Yeah, and I find that frustrating because I'm a guy who, if I know what the rules are, I, that makes me more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so family-owned businesses are not for me anymore. It would have to be a hell of a deal. I got married. My health insurance through that company was not going to be adequate. So I went to a job fair and landed at this company in Lakewood called Micro Warehouse. They were a mail order catalog company that did Micro Warehouse, Mac Warehouse, Datacom Warehouse, a bunch of different. This was back pre-internet, where one of the more popular ways to buy computers and software was mail order over the phone.
Yep.
And I worked there starting in Mac technical support because, did I mention at Rutgers was a Mac shop. So I was a Mac guy back with the original 128s and 512s when the 512 was the Fat Mac. So I started as telephone support for Macintosh stuff.
I remember I was in high school at that point. We had computer labs full of those things.
Yeah. Now I owned a PC, which was not a Windows PC, by the way, because it was like a 286 or a 386. So it was DOS and maybe Windows 3.1 eventually.
Yeah.
And I ended up they realized, hey, this guy knows Macintosh and he knows PC. So I did cross technical stuff. I used to joke, and this is completely inappropriate for 2021, but I'm going to say it anyway because this was, forgive me, this was 1996. I used to joke that I was bitextual and that my customers didn't mind. Yeah, again, right? Doesn't quite float in 2021, but history is history.
It really is, yeah.
Right. And then so after doing the cross technical stuff, I then ended up as a product trainer where I would help develop training modules and onboard the new employees who were coming in. Because remember, Micro Warehouse, we're pulling people in off the street now. This is grandma who wants a part-time job, or this is someone just out of high school, and they're expected to get on the phone and talk about Ethernet and RAM upgrades and things like that. So that was really hard for him. And that's where when I was a product trainer, that's where the persona of Uncle Mark was born. What I did is in Quark Express, I developed this thing that I called Uncle Mark's tip sheet. And one of the Mac techs, his name was Fred Galpern. I still remember Fred. He drew a black and white picture of me digitally. It's the icon that you see on some of the Red Hat stuff. And so Uncle Mark's tip sheet, I would go over a specific technology or a product line or something, and then I would make 200 copies of this thing and hand it out to the salespeople. And these guys loved it. They ate it up. They'd have them pasted up in their cubes, and it was just looked upon as a really cool resource because remember, pre-Google.
Oh yeah, right.
Pre-internet.
That wall was Google for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Uncle Mark was really born out of my product training job at Micro Warehouse. After that, I ended up becoming the senior manager of tech support. So I managed some managers as well as the pools of techs for both Macintoshes and PCs. And Micro Warehouse was a fun company to work for, and I probably would have stayed there for a really long time. But in December of 1997, they did a massive layoff.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of us were cut, and I was one of them. They gave me a severance package. I had jury duty in January. I had just recovered from pneumonia. So I went and served jury duty. That was a fun little trial. And then started pounding the pavement. I ended up doing consulting work for Merck. They hired me as a desk side support in Rahway in the basic research area. And that was basically, monitor cases, go out to the user's desk. They had a lot of Macs they were using, although some people were using NT351 as their workstation. And right, basically help people, the email's not working, or how do I print this document, or my computer's failing. So really fun. And made a lot of good friends there, had some good experiences. In 1998, I was chilling in my office because I became quickly a deployed support tech for a specific area because I knew what I was doing. So instead of pulling tickets from all the departments I was the deployed support for immunology and rheumatology. Great group. Still love those guys. I'm sitting in my office and I'm just surfing. I'm surfing Slashdot, I think. And
as you would in 1997, yeah.
And I was I come across this thing called the Halloween documents, the Halloween papers, whatever. And it was basically a rant against Microsoft, and talking about open source software and Linux. And I had heard of Linux, but didn't really know anything about it. And reading these Halloween papers, I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And what really hit me with it is it reminded me of the Apple days where you had to know your shit to do stuff, where all the code was there, where you could see how the computer really worked. Because by that point in 1998, neither the Macs or the Windows machines were really open anymore. They had become more of an appliance. So I had to purchase.
I have trouble calling a late '90s computer more of an appliance. I guess more than they used to be. Yes, they were
Everything's
still
relative, man.
they were still very much. You had to know what you were doing to really be proficient at them. But you're right.
Nah,
As compared to
we
Linux of the era or computers of 10 years prior, absolutely.
we were past where you needed to make a boot disk to squeeze as much conventional
Yep.
memory as you needed to play
Yep.
Wing Commander. It was getting boring. Let's be honest. So I had a budget, so I ordered a copy of Red Hat Linux, which is the box for that is on my shelf next to my Fedora. I
Yep.
found it, and now it's now on my shelf. And I had a desktop. I had a compact desktop that was a work machine, and I had a ThinkPad that was also a work machine. So I nuked my ThinkPad and put Red Hat Linux on it, Red Hat Linux 5. And I brought it home that weekend, and I often tell the story. It was a hell of a feeling getting X working in 256 colors. It was a rush.
You're bringing back memories.
Yeah. And so what I ended up doing with Linux is I ended up trying a couple of different distributions, and I settled on Slackware for nerd points, because Slackware you would download tarballs and compile from source.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't this wussy RPM thing.
I mean, you
No,
still
you
had
built
that.
everything from source.
You still had that on Red Hat as well, but yeah, you still had RPM to fall back on for some packages, not all. There were a lot you
Yeah.
could not get an RPM of.
But Slackware was the distro that had, if you did Slackware, you were like nerd foo guy. And I was in for the cred at that point. I wanted Slackware because it was baller and because it would show I knew what I was doing.
I knew a guy that was very into Slackware.
And, I remember LimeWire. I had Winamp on Linux. I downloaded so many illegal songs that I still have in my library. They've gone from device to device to device. A lot of those were downloaded via LimeWire.
I probably
using
still have
my,
a few as well.
Using my Slackware laptop from 20 years ago. Yeah, that's right. Configure, make, install. So desk side support, I ended up as a Merck employee, not as a contractor. And desktop support was all well and good, but as I started dickering with Linux more, I'm like, I'd like to work on this, because I felt like the age of being a Windows or Macintosh desktop support guy was coming to an end. Like, I felt if I stayed in that role, I might end up redundant. So I applied a few times when various Unix or Linux positions came up at Merck. And in 2004, I ended up in the office of Fitz Algu, who was the manager of Unix and Linux. And a friend of mine was the team lead for Linux. He had worked in Rahway with me, and then he had moved out to White House. Rennie DeMarco. And Fitz is looking at me, and we're talking, and he's like, you seem to be very talented, but your resume is a little light. And one of the things I had showed him was the work I had done with Neverwinter Nights and Nordock, the persistent world I used to run, and a lot of the Linux piping and stuff that we used to make it work. And Fitz is like, man, you don't really have the stuff in your resume that we're looking for. And I remember I looked across the desk at Fitz, and I said, Fitz, all I'm asking for is a chance. Hire me and give me a few months. I'll do what it takes to show you I can do this job. And if I can't come up to speed quickly, feel free to fire me and I'll find another job. And he looked at me and he's like, I like your attitude. I think I want to give you that chance. Now, mind you, I had several young children at home. This was not a move that my wife had authorized. I basically
please.
Yeah, give me the chance, and if it doesn't work, then just, get rid of me.
Yeah.
But I want the chance to show you. And I went from junior Linux admin to Linux engineer to, by the time I left Merck in 2015, I was the big Linux fish in that pond. And it was a hell of a ride. And then a buddy of mine, Russ, you know him.
Yep.
I think you know him, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
He had left Merck for Red Hat, and he calls me in December of 2014 and says, "Hey, there's a position open in Red Hat. on our team. So I got all excited. I put my resume in, and Red Hat went radio silent on me. There was this huge layoff in January. Like they cut 30% of the IT staff. I was one of the lucky survivors
At Merck, not at Red Hat.
at Merck, right?
Let's clarify that. Red Hat doesn't generally lay people off so
no.
far.
And I'm like, oh, great. I get to stay here and do more work with fewer people. And then,
Awesome.
then Red Hat called me at the end of March, and I started the interviewing. Oh, my God. And then it moved so quickly. I turned in my resignation at Merck after 14 years on May 4th, 2015. Happy Star Wars Day. And I did it on that day on purpose. And then started at Red Hat June 1st, 2015. And I just started my 7th year at Red Hat, which is pretty fantastic. But that's the story of my career, with some bits of my Linux story. I'm the guy who did. I actually was internet famous before that was popular.
Yeah, right.
Let's see here. Oh, no, it helps if I spell it right. So back in the late 90s, there was a D&D game called Neverwinter Nights where you could do persistent worlds.
Yep.
And these are the forums for my world that I wrote, the Land of Nordock. And it was originally just a world I made. And these forums, by the way, do not have all the history. This looks like a rebuild. But I was interviewed by Linux Magazine. Let me see if I can find that link. Mark Richter.
I remember reading this because you told me about it, and I thought that's
Building
pretty
a better
awesome.
game, Linux Journal.
The funny thing is, I was playing Neverwinter Nights around the time when you were running Nordock.
Yeah.
And I'm almost positive I remember visiting the server and trying it out.
Yeah.
No, the
Building a
name
Better
sounded
Game,
familiar even before you told me about it.
Linux Journal back in 2003, they interviewed me. This is when I was 36. I'm a little older now. But yeah, so that was an amazing experience, building the Land of Nordock, building a community. And one of the things I did, and this was directly because of being inspired by Linux, what a lot of people do is they would build a persistent world, they would host it on their server or servers, but they were the only ones who had it. I built Nordock and actually did a public release version of it where I essentially said, here is the module. I release it for free. People can do whatever they want with it. They can change it. They can host it themselves. It is basically open source. Just, give me credit as the original creator and do what you want with it. And it friggin' exploded because it was basically a ready-to-go persistent world for people who didn't want to start from scratch. And there are variants of it that are still running today. And every so often I sneak around on them, and I'm very pleased at what I wrought.
Just to check it out, yeah.
Just to check it out, and it's neat. If you ever have the chance to do something like that, I highly recommend it because it's great for your ego.
Neverwinter Nights was a really interesting platform because,
very Java-like.
Games,
the programming was Java-like.
Games today are all about produce the game, sell it to people, and then continue to sell them content. Where Neverwinter Nights came, and this wasn't the only game of that era that did this, but it's probably one of the biggest and the one that provided the most for you, right, out of the box. You'd buy Neverwinter Nights and you could just sit down and play it, but it was a D&D 3rd edition based game that came with a tool set so that all of the players, or I should say anyone who owned the game, could essentially run a D&D campaign.
Correct. And you could take over monsters or other NPCs as the DM and talk through them. The intention was that DMs would do a module. they never built it to be a 24/7 persistent world.
Right. Right.
And so many people jumped up and created add-ons and plugins, and we did this hacky little thing where there was a binary plugin you could run on the server that would snoop memory locations, which allowed you to attach it to a database. So we actually had a persistent database on the thing that could save player states, save other states. So it was like almost friggin' enterprise level. It was really, really fun.
That's pretty cool.
But
yeah,
we're all a little bit older. Yeah, that's right, J Scar. Little frozen.
The D&D group that I was playing with at the time, I actually tried to get them to switch over to, well, not 100% switch over, but we were all computer nerds, as, I don't know, I don't want to stereotype too much, but face it, computer nerds in the mid to late 90s, or I should say D&D players in the mid to late 90s, were probably also computer nerds, just face it. Anyway, we were all computer nerds, and we were playing D&D, so I tried to get us all into Neverwinter Nights because I thought it would be fun to be able to design worlds and play that on our Friday nights, just as something different. And they never really bought in. And I don't know if it really ever caught on as that. People turned it into just an online game. They turned it into persistent worlds, and it was pretty cool.
What you got to remember is that back then you had EverQuest, and then you had stuff like Dark Age of Camelot was coming out, Asheron's Call.
Yep. Eventually, WoW. Yeah.
One of the reasons I wrote Nordock is that we had just had my son Joshua, and I do well right now, but I was fucking broke. Like, I didn't have money. I couldn't justify spending $10 a month for an EverQuest subscription.
Yep.
But I wanted that type of hard monster killing gameplay with brutal death penalties and stuff. So that's why I wrote Nordock, and that's why Nordock was intentionally hard. It was brutal, and some people complained about that. I'm like, no, that's my vision. You can take the public release and tweak it and make it more friendly, knock yourself out. But my official Nordock, you earn your experience, and when you die, you lose experience, and you have to go get your stuff back. Like all the stuff about EverQuest that was sometimes really frustrating, but made it such a satisfying adventure when you won.
Yeah.
There was a main quest that required ridiculous attention to detail, and people were like, this is hard, this is impossible. And then people would solve the main quest and be like, wow, that was awesome. So, very, very fond memories of that.
So it's still online, right? I mean, the forums are still up. Is the game still up?
There are still official Nordock forums. I'm a member of one of the Facebook groups that for the official ones, and people still chat. I haven't played myself in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I nowadays I generally play other things, but I do occasionally poke in and see what's going on. I've got good friends, good internet friends that I know only because of that, who I've stayed friends with on social media for a very long time. One of them, when I had a customer in Texas, my friend Gary, I met him and his family for dinner because he lives in Dallas. I met him through Neverwinter Nights. And then later, we formed a gaming group that did WoW together, that did Star Wars Galaxies together, that did EverQuest 2 together.
Star Wars Galaxies. I remember
Star
that.
Wars Galaxies.
That was fun.
That was so good when it first came. Yep. So bug-ridden, but the original vision of the game was amazing.
It was so bug-ridden.
And then they tried to turn it into WoW, which made me sad.
Yeah.
Because if you want to play WoW, play friggin' WoW. Don't try and make every MMO like WoW.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a group streaming night where we'll both log into Nordock, play for a bit.
Well, Valheim, yo.
Well, no, I get that. No, I mean, it would be fun, I think, to check out Nordock. And if you want to come along for the ride, that might, because you can still run Neverwinter Nights on a modern PC. It's not one of those games that died when modern processors killed it off, right?
I picked it up on Steam for some ridiculously low price.
I think I did too.
Are we going to do the Iron Sysadmin Nordock edition?
We should.
We got a bunch of stuff we need to do. We need to install
the
RHEL 5 on a VM.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
make X
We'll
work.
just add this
I
to the
mean,
list.
Yeah, we got to make X work. We can't just be satisfied with
I was
we're at a terminal.
I was gonna do something.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know what we got to do? We got to make sure we can browse to the podcast while it's live
Yeah.
In Mosaic.
in Mosaic. Something.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So so if I have to look back at my life and my career, it's always been about learning stuff, being curious, being able to look under the hood if I want to. I've always been a gamer. I told my wife when we were engaged, look, hon, I play games. I play board games. I play card games. I play computer games. That's not going to change. If that's a deal breaker, go away. And so that was fine. That worked out. And yeah, but that whole thing of being a nerd and wanting to know how stuff works, that led me to Red Hat, which I joke. It's almost not fair that they pay me to do what I do, because I basically play with computers all day and give customers advice. I mean, not that I'm not going to take the money, because it's awesome.
Yeah,
'cause then
right.
I can buy stuff.
Right. It's funny. I was thinking about it earlier because so you wrote a similar article to this before I was hired, because I remember you showing it to me, the what it's like to be a TAM or whatever, what your day is like as a TAM.
Yeah.
Enable Sysadmin has sort of a group of articles that they're trying to produce. What is it like to be a X, and like site reliability engineer, system administrator, like what do I do as this whatever. And I said,
What
well,
is it you do
like,
here?
do you want me to write one about what it's like or what it is to be a TAM? So I've been thinking about ideas about what to write in that article, and one of the things I came up with was, as a sysadmin, what I really loved doing was sitting around and learning new software and playing with new technologies and building new things for people to use. And what I really hated was being on call. And being a TAM takes away the on call and has the other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like I've joked with you. It's like this is where old sysadmins go as a reward for all the years they spent on call.
Right. That's
So-
one of the lines I use.
Yeah.
So
this
so you haven't
job
written your article either?
Oh, are you writing one too? No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I started an outline. I haven't written it yet.
Yeah. So have I. I've just been busy.
Mm-hmm. I know the feeling. But soccer season
That's
is
right.
almost over. Kids' soccer season. So now I'll actually have some time back as soon as my Jeep is running again. That's the other thing that's been sucking up all my time. One of those one things lead to another problem sort of problems. Anyway.
So that's I would say that's the Ballad of Uncle Mark. I don't know if anyone has any questions or what, but
So
that's-
I've been copying down links and stuff and putting them into the notes. We may want to flesh this out a little more, because I didn't exactly summarize it in an outline, but well, whatever.
That's all right.
If you have anything you want to throw into there, then if you do it before I get the show processed and posted tonight, we can it'll be included in the show notes. So folks, things like links to the Nordock forums, this is stuff that Mark had thrown into the Twitch chat while we were going. The YouTube video he referred to about the Tandy computer that he started with, right? Things like that. Excuse me, things like that. They'll be in the show notes. So we'll go with it.
The Jeep just rolls. I'm going to answer the question. I own a Jeep. I can say that.
The Jeep currently doesn't run because I discovered that the radiator was broken while I was doing a suspension upgrade. So that's what I mean by like snowball effect, right? Like I'm working on the suspension. I'm like, what's that drip? Oh, crap.
So sad.
Yeah, so sad indeed. So now I'm putting a radiator in the Jeep. And I haven't finished the suspension yet. So yeah,
That
it
does-
currently
that does
doesn't
not sound fun to me.
currently doesn't
I know
run
that
or
some
drive.
people enjoy that. That does not sound fun to me.
It is enjoyable. We can certainly talk about this in the chat, though. I think for the moment, what we're probably going to do is go to a break, unless anybody had anything else they wanted to chat with. Jason, did you have any questions for Mark?
J-Scar has a question.
Oh.
What was your first computer game you can remember playing?
Ah, there you go.
So, wow. All right.
No,
If
WoW
we're
wasn't out yet.
talking- No. I think what we're going to have to do is probably count the Apple II because I don't remember playing a real computer game prior to playing on the Apple II. So Everett's computer came with a couple of things, but the game that I absolutely can remember playing was a little ditty called Apple Trek, which I am booting up now on my Retro Pi.
You can wheel it over. Good. It's almost in frame. It's almost
loading
in
in and
frame.
drawing the language card. We'll point the camera down. Where basically you fly around in the Starship Enterprise and you kill Klingons. So we're going to set up our own. We're going to say we're going to have 25 Klingons. We're going to have 4 bases. And then the self-destruct password will be fish. And then so my dad, Everett, and I would gather around the computer in Everett's den and play this together, figuring out the best strategies to fly around with the Enterprise to kill Klingons. So this is probably one of the first games I actually remember playing. There were a couple of other games that were on the Apple that shipped with it. But there was a Star Wars game that was really pretty terrible, where you basically tried to shoot TIE fighters. There was some like animal guessing games, but Star Trek was my bomb. Loved that game. Yeah. And then what happens, my Uncle Terry, who lived down in Florida, he actually seriously inspired me. He's really part of my story, and I wish he was still with us. But he would send me up cassette tapes full of games, and he would narrate in between the programs to tell me about them and all this other stuff. But he's probably one of my earliest mentors. He got me into computers and electronics as well. He'd come up to visit, and we'd talk electronics, talk computers, and just have a good old time. So he was really super excited when I got into computers as a profession. He passed away when I was early in my Merc career. I wish he had been around to see me get to Red Hat.
Yeah.
And I kind of when I got into Red Hat, I wrote a post on Facebook about that. Let me see if I can find that. Facebook. Anyway, I'm looking on my profile. Facebook has changed crap around, and it's sometimes it's hard to find stuff you've done.
It's always hard to find stuff on Facebook, in my opinion. It's
yeah.
They do their best to try to show you what they think you want to see, but when you're trying to find something that's outside of that algorithm, it's like almost impossible.
I wrote it using when they used to have what they called notes. Search profile. Here we go. Uncle Terry. Let's see if I can find it. Is this it? That was from 2018. I want the one from 2015. Mark Richter's post. Here we go. Yeah, this is kind of my tribute to my uncle. I wrote when I ended up at Red Hat.
Is it public that we can?
It's public. Yeah.
Okay, that'll be in the show notes, folks.
But he was a great guy.
Cool.
And this actually has some of my story in it. And there's a picture of me as a tiny baby. At the bottom of it. And it was this was the late 60s, early 70s, so it's embarrassing.
It's a picture of a rock wall with like chiseling marks in it.
Almost.
Nice. All right, so this has been a fun trip down memory lane. I see Jason is talking about wares in the chat.
It was totally wares.
That's what we call uncles sending tapes of programs to people.
And he even told me on one of them, hey, just so you know, you shouldn't give copies of this to anybody else because a lot of these are things that people pay money for. I'm giving it to you because, you're my nephew, but So he even kind of warned me not to share them among my friends, and I
He
did
was
honor that.
he was the software copyright warning before there was a software copyright warning.
Even though he was the one spreading the.
Even though he was the one giving you the software.
He was the one pirating. Yeah, it's Uncle Terry. Love the guy. So, yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking that question, Jay Scar, because that kind of led me back and made me remember. Because again, my dad's fantastic. He and I learned this stuff together. So between my dad and my uncle, I had some really fantastic family members who stood behind me and helped push me to where I got to.
All right. So this has been a fun story. And now I think we're going to go to...
we're going to let it go. Let it go.
It wouldn't be right without some singing at the end.
Now.
So we're going to go to a break, folks. We will be back shortly. I just need to find the button. Here we are. All right. We'll be back in a bit.
Press the button. Press the button.
Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. So, Mark, how many Klingons did you get during the break?
I destroyed 3 Klingons. I'm in a quadrant with a single Klingon now. I'm about to torpedo him, but I figured, we're doing the podcast. The great thing about Apple Trek is it's not real time.
You just walk away. You can come back.
You can walk away and come back. Yeah.
I don't think
And it won't even burn to the screen because it's not a TV. It's
Perfect.
It's a flat display.
it's perfect.
It is. It's kind of tight.
It's perfect.
Tight.
It's all of the antiquated old software with none of the drawbacks,
Damn
except the
straight.
software
And
itself.
You know what? It's still a damn fine game.
Yeah.
Like, it's based on Star Trek that was on bigger computers. The same thing. And it's an awesome game. Like, it's totally playable in 2021.
There were some fun old games like that. I mean, I talked about the rejuvenation of the BBS project
Yeah.
last time we recorded. And there's a lot of games, not quite that level that you're talking about, but a lot of like old ANSI games and text-based adventures and stuff that are on major BBS. A lot of them are getting a little more popularity now that the project has kind of rekindled. Like there's a game called Galactic Empire that the guy who runs the project or was running the project owns the rights to, and he's actually fixed up some bugs in it and made a new release of it, which is like, I mean, this is probably 30 years since the game was released, and it's finally had a new release. It's pretty cool. So, anyway, we're back, folks. If you missed Uncle Mark's life story, you're just gonna have to go back and listen to the recorded show because it was a fun story. And we're gonna do our housekeeping stuff. So let's see here. Patreon. We have the same number of patrons as we had last time we recorded, and that is 21 of you. Thank you all. $108 a month. We got Arinomi, Andrew, Tatro, rootisgod, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, gimpyb, Mark with a K. Just realized I didn't drop his last name from the notes. I'm going to take that back out now. Our good friend DeMentor, John the Nice Guy, Mark with a C, Julius, Andi, Charles, Jay, sorry, skipped right over you, or him, totally not you, right? And 22532, our old buddy. So, thank you all. Just a reminder, folks, if you want to support the show via Patreon, just go to ironsysadmin.com/Patreon. Sorry, I don't think that works. Patreon.com/ironsysadmin. And there's several tiers you can join, some of which give you some interesting perks, some of which give you like merch from the show. Some of you I owe merch, but you have to give me your addresses, otherwise I can't send you the merch.
There.
So you're going to have to get back to me with that if you want your merch. But anyway, thank you to all of the patrons.
That's the sound bit you need. You need Arnold from Terminator. What is your address there?
All right, and if you want to buy merch, instead of becoming a patron and paying for it and paying for it and paying for it until you can actually earn some, you can just go buy some at Teespring, teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. T-shirts and mugs and phone cases for like phones that probably don't exist anymore.
Wait a minute. I've been a patron forever. You have my address. Where's my merch?
You're not in the right tier.
You want more money out of me?
Yeah. Now, maybe we could work that out, but you already have a shirt. I think you do
And
anyway.
stickers.
And did I buy it for you or did you buy it? You might have bought it.
No, I bought it. I have stickers too somewhere. Big pile of them.
The ones that Jedi made us?
I think so.
I still have them in my bag that never leaves that corner anymore because I never go anywhere. But that's
Yeah.
changing. We're going to actually get to go out and do stuff again soon. Soon we'll be able to visit customers again.
I don't understand.
Go out to social gatherings again.
I'm scared.
It is scared. There's a world out there full of things that might have COVID. Anyway, we don't have any new reviews this week, unless I missed them. If I missed them, please feel free to reach out. Let me know that I missed them, and I'll try to cover them next show.
If you are leaving reviews and we're not finding them, please tell us where the hell you're putting them because we can't find them.
Yeah.
So
I
they're
check.
probably not very effective.
I check iTunes. I check.
Clearly not.
I check Stitcher. No, Stitcher doesn't have reviews.
Which,
Does
if
it?
they're bad reviews, we're okay with them not being easy to find.
Mm-hmm. I have a
We
review.
do come up as we do come up as the #1 podcast when you search for Iron Sysadmin podcast, though.
Oh, good. Good. We're #1 when you search for specifically the title of our podcast.
Hey, we'll take
What,
the
that's-
victories we can get.
Yeah.
We have a surprising number of fans from the UK, which is, I shouldn't say that's too surprising. I don't know why, but I'm just surprised by the number that there are.
I'm going to go with we have a surprising number of fans, and just
That
leave
could be
at
it. It's just there's a surprising number of fans. Somehow people enjoy listening to this, even though we go on and on and on. Better than coming up second. Yes, that is very valid. If you search for Iron Sysadmin podcast and we came up second, then we're doing
trouble.
we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
All right. So that's our announcement stuff. Do we have any other announcements that aren't in the notes? Any upcoming things or anything like that we want to talk about?
So B-Sides Delaware's happening November 13, 14. We're going to be virtual again this year, because
You didn't.
pandemic and whatnot.
I mean, you probably couldn't really tell, so you just fell back to virtual, right?
Yeah, so we've just been going that way because it's too late to try to book the venue.
Yeah.
For that time.
And if you had booked it earlier and then you couldn't have it in
Right.
person, it would have been a complete
So-
waste of time and money. Yeah.
So the plan is next year we'll be back in person. Actually, we're going to do hybrid. We're going to do virtual and in person. And the CFP is open. I've got to get it posted up so that people can find it, but it is open if you want to talk. Just let me know and I'll get you the link, but we'll get that out there soon. And yeah, so that's happening.
And folks, B-Sides is a great conference if you think you're perhaps not good enough to talk at a conference, or if you're worried about not being accepted, or if you're worried about the content not being what people want. It's a great place to sort of get your feet wet. I could be wrong, but it feels like they accept just about anything. Not slighting
Don't make
the.
them sound desperate.
I'm not
Lord.
slighting the content that I have seen at B-Sides Delaware. Maybe it's just the caliber of folks that that apply that make talks, but
Wow.
it's a great place to. It's not a huge conference. Like, you're not going to be in front of 10,000 people trying to like get past your nerves. Anyway, I think I'm just digging the hole deeper here. My point is, if you're worried that you're not good enough to submit a talk, submit a talk.
So I'm going to be perfectly frank. I was seriously considering submitting a talk, but I'm in Disney that week, so I will not be submitting a talk.
That's terrible. How dare you be in Disney that week? In fact, I missed B-Sides Delaware 2019 because I was in Disney. So I guess I can't.
It is virtual, so you could do your talk from Disney.
Yeah!
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm good. No. I don't
It's a family conference, so your entire family could be on the talk with you.
Yeah.
It could be part of your vacation.
You could like rope in Mickey Mouse.
I
Hey
mean,
Mickey,
do
how
you-
do you
do you
feel about C
understand-
groups?
Do you understand that you like the opportunity your family is missing out on?
I completely understand it, and I think we'll be riding the rat ride in Epcot instead. Thank you very much. Because Remy's Paris Adventure opens October 1st.
Oh wow.
So you do it from your phone over
On the rat
5G or
ride.
whatever, because I'm sure you're inoculated and have all the extra antennas,
Yeah.
and you just do it on the rat ride.
Jason, you're a good guy, but there's no circumstance where that happens.
It's just terrible.
I'm sure I can throw like money at you and get you to do it.
It
but
would have to be a lot of money,
I would have to have money.
You'd have to
Right,
have money to
so-
do it with. Yeah, that
and it would
would.
have to be a lot. It would have to be a lot of money. No offense, buddy. When
That's
is
fair.
it? 13th and 14th?
13th, 14th. It's a Friday, Saturday.
Oh, wait a minute.
You're like,
Hang
wait,
on a second.
I might be on my way back from Disney by then.
Well, no. I thought we were going to be there on my son's birthday, which does not make me a horrible person. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I don't know. we're flying. I think I'm gonna be. Why the fuck is my vacation not on there? How did I not put that on the calendar yet?
Whoops.
Because you're a terrible person.
Whoopsie, dude.
You
I am
haven't
a
scheduled your
terrible
backups yet.
person. It's November, for crying out loud.
I know.
I put in for the time off. So I think we're flying. I think we're flying there on Sunday the 14th. I could technically do a talk on the 13th. Now I'm tempted.
Totally should.
I'm sorry. 13, 14 is Saturday, Sunday. That's
Yeah,
not Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. We're flying down on Sunday, if I remember correctly.
It's a great way to close out your work week. Give a talk at these sides, and then I'm out going to Disney.
Huh. I could probably do a talk on the Saturday. Let me think about that.
Nice.
We'll just hound you. We got months.
Oh, yeah. I'm okay with being hounded.
Cool. Speaking of hounded, I have to hound my 3D printer now.
Oh,
It's still working. Maybe this one will finish.
yeah.
It says there's 6 hours left. My God.
Octoprint, huh?
Yep. So, since we're solidly into chat now, you guys probably recall that I've been talking about this hex lamp that I'm trying to make.
Yeah. We've heard.
This is where he
coming-
picks up a pile of
It's
failed
coming.
prints.
No, look, it's coming along, right?
I keep seeing this thing on various calls I'm on with Nate.
Yeah,
You
and
can't-
it keeps getting more and more
Oh,
complete.
look at my hex lamp.
Look,
You can't print
Look at my
that.
hex
That's a copyright violation or something.
why is it a copyright violation? They're
Because I've
hex.
seen that design before.
Well, whatever. This is the design the dude that designed it used. I was gonna try a different one, and decided I just didn't have the patience. But I've got the LED strip in it, but I don't have a controller for the LED strip yet. And as long as it doesn't fall apart, because it's just held together with super glue, it's getting along. The
Right,
reason,
so if you take the Raspberry Pi out of your Octoprint, you can use that as the controller for the LEDs.
yeah, no, it's going to be controlled with an ESP8266 running WLED, which is a software
Boy,
package made for
You are
controlling
just
LEDs.
all over that home automation stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, and then it's going to be controlled with Home Assistant. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Me, on the other hand, I printed a duck
Oh, you're
that,
Duxy.
that when it rolls, the head moves.
I mean, that's awesome. I do have to say that's awesome.
I'm actually, and so I was so happy with the little gray ducksy
Did you make it
that I
bigger?
printed out the giant red duck.
Yeah!
Although he needs a better surface. And what's neat about Duxy is that it's the class of things that print in one piece. Like it prints with all this stuff in place, and then you cut a couple of supports, and all the parts move. And that absolutely just friggin' fascinates me. The engineering required to design the STL so that it prints as a movable thing. I mean, how cool is that?
That is pretty
So-
cool.
I put the Duxy STL under my section of chat.
One of the early things that I printed when we first got the printer was you printed that cat for Grace, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
That it printed out in one piece, and then it had those joints in it that would move.
Oh yeah, the flex ones. Yeah.
I printed a dragon like that for my daughter when we first got the
There's a bunch
printer.
of flex ones. They're
It was-
awesome.
It's pretty cool, right? I printed
like
out each
black-
wing, and then I printed out the main body
They're
of the
like black
dragon.
magic.
They
Like,
snap together, and then it's just like
shouldn't work.
a flexible dragon. It's pretty damn cool. I love
Yeah.
the concept, right? That it's printed together, like it's printed as one piece, and then you pick it up and it just
Yeah.
works.
It's
pretty
like
cool.
you kind of want to do like a 3D print of a pistol, and it's all assembled, and you pick it up off the bed and then cap a sucker with it. Boom.
There's a from time to time I just go browse Thingiverse and find cool stuff, which is probably where you found Duxy, I'm assuming.
Of course, Duxy was on Thingiverse. Where else would it be?
At the top of my list on Thingiverse is a little gun that shoots
Is it
Tic Tacs.
Thingiverse? Oh, it is Thingiverse. It's not
Thingiverse.
Thingiverse. It is Thingiverse.
Same,
Oh,
we
yeah,
know
I
what
saw
you're
the
talking
Tic-
about.
I saw the Tic Tac.
There's a
gun.
Tic Tac gun. You put a box of Tic Tacs on the top, and you can shoot Tic Tacs with it. I'm like, that's awesome.
Why have I not printed that one?
I don't know. Maybe you don't have any boxes of Tic Tacs.
Well, I would buy Tic Tacs because now
Just
I
to
don't
shoot
have to
them
wear a
around the
I don't
room.
have to wear a mask to the grocery
Wait a second.
store.
Do you want ants? Because that's how you get ants. A Tic Tac
so-
gun is how you get ants.
So when you put the box of Tic Tacs on the top of it, do you push it forward and it cuts the opening and just pops it open for
Dude,
you?
I'm just gonna. I'm
That'd
gonna
be
show
awesome.
you
That would
what-
be-
I'm gonna show you what it looks like.
You
I'm
just
gonna drop
slap it in there
chat.
and rack a Tic Tac and
Oh, I gotta get my printer running again.
So the thing I was just checking on, the print that I was checking on is, so my wife is a huge Sailor Moon fan. You remember Sailor Moon, the anime from like the 90s?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, whatever. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit it. It's a neat show. Whatever. I like anime.
Okay. Her and Snubs will get along.
Okay.
Snubs is apparently a huge Sailor Moon fan as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not a huge Sailor Moon fan, but it was an entertaining show with an interesting story and whatever. There's better animes out there, if you ask me. But my wife loves it, right? So I came across a creator on Thingiverse who makes... some of them are a little questionable. So I hesitate. I have a link to the model that I'm trying to print. If you look at his other works, some of them are... Well, you might want to be careful who you're in front of when you look at them. But anyway, this particular one is a very cool model of Sailor Moon in this like really cool like action pose. And I've been trying to print it so that my wife could like paint it and put it in her craft room. And he's got a couple other Sailor Scouts, Sailor Mercury and Jupiter and whatever. And I may print those as well. But I have tried like 6 times now to print this damn thing. And after about 10 hours of printing, the print head jams. And the filament, like the extruder, right? The little motor that pushes the filament in, wears through the filament. And then it just prints air for several layers until I figure out.
Does it always fail at the same point? Because maybe it's an issue with the code.
It's close to the same point every time.
Okay.
I don't understand what's happening and why it's jamming it.
I don't understand.
The thing that's happening, because I've done a bunch of research to figure out why the hell is this happening around the same time every time. It's they basically say that if there's a few things that can cause it that'll make the filament itself become too hard within the hot end, right? And it'll make it jam like that. I'm wondering if I was using Prusa Slicer to do it and it defaulted to like 210 degrees, which I think is too high for PLA. So I'm trying it at a lower print temperature this time.
Depends
And
on the PLA. I generally print at 200.
yeah, this one's at 195. And I also, the other thing I did was I turned the retraction distance down. You know how it'll retract to help prevent stringing? It was retracting like 6 millimeters, which doesn't sound like much, but I think it was enough that hot PLA was getting up inside the Bowden tube, and then it was clogging up the Bowden tube. So I took it down to like 2 millimeters. So there's more stringing. It's not terrible, but there's more. But it's gotten further so far than it has ever, right,
So
at
it's
this
printing
point.
now.
Yeah, it's printing at the moment. That's what I'm pointing at, even though you can't see it. But it's at 65%, which is, I think, the furthest it's ever gotten. So I'm crossing my fingers. I don't want to jinx it by saying that it's doing well, but it is doing better than it has before. So hopefully
Better.
it'll finish this time. I don't.
Stronger.
If it doesn't,
Faster.
I found a different model I'm going to try to print. Because this is just... I've wasted half a spool of white PLA on this. Because it gets so far in before it fails.
So here's something I've found. And Jason, you've barely gotten to talk tonight. It feels so bad. You don't even have a section in chat, but I'm going to still talk anyway. Here's what I found. There are definitely PLA spools that are better than others. Like I have a set of I have a gray spool that is banging. You can do whatever the fuck you want with this PLA and it prints fine. My current white PLA is fussy, and my current black PLA is not great.
Yeah. So
the translucent green, garbage.
Oh yeah, yeah. The color, especially with the translucents and the glow in the darks and whatever, a lot of people say they're harder to work with.
And they sat around too long during the pandemic, so I'm sure that some of them have taken humidity damage.
All filaments are not created equal.
Yeah, so
They're
I try to stick to the same brand of filament. So all of the PLA I buy is Hatchbox. And what was the brand I was buying? PETG.
I have not gotten.
Overture, I think it's called.
I have a roll of Protopasta PETG that I have not been able to get. I mean, I think I jammed up the the hot end, but I have not been able to get that to print right yet.
Yeah.
Protopasta? Is that what you can print food with and eat it?
I hope.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
I want to be able to print a sushi roll and just eat the sushi roll. I mean that's I basically want a replicator.
That would be nice. So, I mean, that's really the future of 3D printers, I think, right? So, you've said this several times, Mark, that 3D printing is at a stage right now where it's like, it feels very hacky, right? It's kind of like Linux was in the
Apple II,
90s,
old
right?
School Linux.
Well, picture like printers, right? They used to be difficult.
Well,
and then they were not so difficult, and now they're basically an appliance, right? So that, I think, is where 3D printers are going. When 3D printers become an appliance, you've got a replicator.
there you go. Yeah, printers, like back in the Apple days, you basically had to write your own print driver for every single program that you wanted to print with.
Yep.
PR number sign 1 turned on the line printer on the Apple. And then PR number sign 0, I think, would turn that printer off.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the wrong replicator, Jason.
Yeah.
He's talking about the SG-1 replicators.
So we just got done binging through Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, and my wife is now working on Stargate Universe. Don't
watch Stargate Universe because you're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it. Then you're gonna start to love it, and then it ends.
Right. Yeah.
Don't watch it.
Yes. No, I enjoyed it right from the beginning, but yes, you're right. It ends abruptly and it pisses me off, and we really need to have more Stargate.
Canceled?
And I would very much.
It got canceled because the beginning of the series sucked. Stargate fans didn't like it.
I got corrected. I got corrected on the internet about this. Okay.
Oh, okay. Why did it really get canceled?
Allegedly, the studio that was making it went out of business. They ran out of money.
That's possible.
So they went bankrupt.
That's possible.
But I would very much like to make enough millions of dollars so that I can buy the rights to it and set somebody on to making Stargate Mark IV.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, Stargate was a great series. Stargate SG-1 was great. Atlantis was great. SG-1 got weird by the end, but I mean, it ran like 11 seasons.
10.
What?
But
10 season. What series doesn't get weird by the 10th season, right? Except maybe the Simpsons, which is in like its 478th season or something.
Supernatural got weird about the first season, so.
Oh no, I'm saying like a successful series, right? That is able to get to 10 seasons. The 10th season is always not nearly as good as the first one.
Supernatural was 15 seasons, so
it was
weird the whole way through.
I didn't know that.
The storyline was never supposed to go past the 5th season either.
Storyline of what, SG-1?
Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the original writer, basically after the 5th season was like, okay, I'm done with my ideas, and walked away.
He told the story he wanted to tell.
And they're like, no, people like it. We have to keep making them, even if they're terrible.
Right. At which point, every writer in the room said, "Here, hold my beer." And then God came into the picture, and it was amazing.
It was
great.
Supernatural. They kept like just they how like in an MMO you've got that power creep and the power curve.
Yeah.
Partway through its run, they basically, I'm gonna say, defeated God because he just leaves. Like, where the hell do you go from there?
He's like, I'm done. Bye.
Yeah. But you know what? The ending. The
I
ending,
actually haven't finished it yet. So
the ending was amazing. I thought it was done really, really well.
I haven't seen a single episode of the show. Not one.
And it's got some fantastic what I would consider standalone episodes. There's this one cheesy one where there's this high school that puts on Supernatural the musical, and it's ball achingly funny. It's fantastic.
That's hilarious.
This all girls high school puts on Supernatural the musical, and it's an amazing episode. And it's like there's certain episodes of Battlestar Galactica or Doctor Who you don't need to be a fan to really appreciate.
Yeah.
Like Doctor Who, you could sit even just a regular fan, but like you could sit a science fiction fan in front of Blink, and they don't ever have to see any other episode of Doctor Who. They can appreciate Blink. Same thing with both 33 and The Hand of God with Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, you can appreciate those on their own. And the Supernatural, the musical episode, is the same way. There's also one where they end up as cartoons in the Scooby-Doo universe.
Oh yes, there's a Scooby-Doo episode.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely my favorite Supernatural episode ever.
That
was
weird.
that blew me away, and it was done so well.
It was. With the Scooby-Doo characters have existential crises because they suddenly realize that everything, oh no, they're not just, real estate scam artists wearing masks. They're actually, monsters are real, it's really
it was really good.
Nice. So,
that was fun, knocking these all off on a tangent.
Yeah, that was quite the tangent. I guess I'll finish up the stuff check out if this guy, so back to the 3D printing thing, which is where we started. This guy does some really cool models, right? And he's done things like Sailor Moon. He's done Princess Zelda. He did Link, but Link I think is a bust instead of an actual figure. He's just like the bust.
He's decapitated Link.
Yeah, right. But he's also done things that are a little weird.
Not safe for work.
Not safe for work. I'll just put it that way. Not safe for work. So if you go look at his other models, just like none of them are explicit outright if you look at them on Thingiverse, because I'd imagine Thingiverse has some kind of rules about what you can post.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to go look, but I appreciate your input.
Sure, but if anyone listening wants to go look, I'm just warning you. If you download a model, it may be a little more explicit than you're looking for. But the things like the Sailor Moon one are not explicit, and they're actually really well done. They're really well sculpted, and to be honest, I'm really excited to see how the print's going to come out. Because if it has nearly the detail that the model has, it's going to be pretty damn cool.
Nice.
And the other thing I wanted to chat about is I've been tinkering around with distributed social networks again. This is like a recurring problem I have, I think. Jason, you might remember. I looked at Diaspora years and years and years ago.
Yeah,
it's
here
still
goes again.
It's still around. Like, it's still happening. There's still a thing. I actually stood up a pod.
Well, I mean, open source projects never die, so.
Well, no, this one actually has. It's come a long way. The problem is, so people are probably familiar with Mastodon. I mean, like, I can probably say Mastodon in a mixed crowd of IT people, and a good percentage of people are going to understand what Mastodon is. It's a distributed social network that's meant to sort of mimic Twitter. Mastodon uses, so in the back end, it uses a federation protocol called ActivityPub, I think it's called, which is an open protocol which anybody can implement. And then you can be part of what they call the Fediverse. And while Diaspora had that idea, they do not use ActivityPub. So Diaspora is cool, right? And I really want it to be awesome. Mark's over there killing more
I
Klingons.
am. You can hear the awesome photon torpedo sound.
I want it to be awesome, but the fact that it does not use a federated protocol that can be used outside of their own network makes me think that it's a little less likely to catch on ever. Like, even less likely than other competitors are. So I'm also poking around at one called Friendica, which is basically like a Facebook clone that uses ActivityPub. So I don't know if they'll go anywhere, but I got to be honest, I'm just like sick and tired of the popular social media platforms, and I don't know, I guess I'm kind of hoping there's something better out there. The blessing and the curse of these things is that there's no one there.
Yeah,
well, I mean, there's people there, right? But it's not the people you want to interact with.
There needs to be adoption. That's the problem you're running into right now. There's
no
adoption.
That's just the thing, though, right? It's the problem, but it's also the curse, right? Because if there is adoption, then there'll be people there, and the people that are there will be just like the people that are on popular social media. Because there's nothing to prevent them from turning other social media platforms into the same cesspool that Facebook and Twitter are right now.
Then stick with small private forums, small communities, Discord channels.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's my solution.
I just kind of wanted to mention it, and if anybody's out there listening that's also poking around at these things, I'd love to hear from folks and see if anybody's had some success finding like decent communities there that aren't just other IT nerds, because that's basically what I'm finding there. There's no like general public there. It's all just other IT nerds. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not quite social media, because social media is varied, and you can find like, your friend from high school there and stuff like that. And it's just not a thing on these not Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You know what I mean?
I hear you, Jelly Bean.
So yeah, that's aside from all the Jeep work I'm doing, that's everything I've got. Yeah, what's wrong with IT nerds? I didn't say there's anything wrong with that. Isn't there a Seinfeld episode like this? Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's anything wrong with it. Yeah.
So Mark, aside from Duxie, what do you got going on?
So, my sister had arranged for this Africa safari for my dad and stepmom, but my dad's having real problems with his feet. So it looks like my daughter and I might be joining her in Africa in February for a safari, which is kind of an interesting thing. Looks like it could be actually kind of fun.
That's pretty crazy. African safari.
That is crazy. It's not something I've ever dreamed of doing, and whatever. But yeah, it definitely is something different. So that kind of goes in the same swim lane as all the scouting and canoe trips and things like that I do that aren't IT-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to be honest, right? So I've spent a ton of time the past like 3 months working in the garage, doing Jeep projects, doing just like stuff that's just me in the garage doing things, right? And I really want to just get out and enjoy the outdoors, right? So I've like promised myself that once the Jeep is done, this iteration, right, I'm just not going to touch it for the rest of the summer unless something falls apart and I have to fix it. No more upgrades, no more like tinkering, none of it, right? And what you're describing there with an African safari is like exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe not going to Africa, but just get out there and do something with the family, right?
Right. Like, so my crew the crew 76 that I just started, we're doing a multi-day canoe trip at the beginning of August. And that's, a couple of days on the Delaware. Really, really kind of fun. Yeah. Nate will take the Jeep in the woods. He
Absolutely.
He goes off-roading.
Yeah.
That's what I own a Jeep that's never been in the woods. I own a Patriot. We got it because of foul weather and whatever.
Yeah, that's what they're good for. They're not good for in the woods. I mean, you can do it. I know someone that does.
I don't want to.
I don't know
get all
why
scratched up and shit.
they would do that on a Patriot, but they do. Whatever.
And then
it's their thing.
The last Fitbit I got has disappointed me for the last time. So I think I'm honestly, after talking to some friends who own them, I'm honestly, I think about to pull the trigger on an Apple Watch, especially because I had a bunch of Red Hat rewards dumped on me this week. So that was kind of cool.
It's funny, I didn't put it in the chat, but I similarly had some Red Hat rewards dumped on me, and I bought a gimbal for my camera.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'll be
Red
happy
Hat
with that.
rewards for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Red Hat has this, because other companies do programs similar to this,
Mm-hmm.
but every employee gets a certain number of points a quarter that they can give to other employees for doing cool stuff. And you can turn these points into gift certificates and Visa cards and other stuff like that.
Or you can flat out buy products with them through the store. However, I suspect that those products are refurbished and returned products because I bought one that way and it turned out to not meet the quality expectations that I had.
I always either turn my points into Amazon cards.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
I'll sometimes turn them into a virtual Visa if I want to buy stuff on Steam. Although I can turn these into an Apple gift card, so that's what I'll probably do.
I was this close to buying a drone. I had enough money to get to get a Mavic Mini.
This close.
But I decided the gimbal would be a little more useful than a drone because in order to use a drone for the stuff I do, you actually have to have a commercial drones license, and I really don't want to go down that path.
Or just don't get caught.
No, well, so if I use drone footage in my YouTube videos, there will be questions. Like, it's flat out. People have been caught for doing this, right? Because you make money on them. If you make money on them, you have to have a commercial drone pilot's license.
How much is a commercial drone's license?
I don't know. It's not a lot from what I understand, but there's also a test. And to be honest, I just don't want to deal with it.
What am I in school? Yeah.
So maybe someday, but right now, it's not a thing I want to put money into. I mean, I would put money into it. It'd be really cool to have a drone that I could get some really like epic footage with and stuff. But to be honest, I'd probably crash it into a tree and waste $500.
Drones fascinate me, but I haven't pulled the trigger on one.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's
So
funny
that's it.
because last episode you went from I hate watches to I think I might buy an Apple Watch.
Well,
And now
again,
you're
I thought-
actually thinking about buying an Apple Watch.
Well, and I had my annual physical this week, and my numbers aren't great. Like I've gained weight. I know my blood sugar's not where it needs to be. I kind of started saying screw it in October and stopped counting what I was eating and whatever. I think I just got burned out with the way things are going, and
Mhm.
now I'm in a better mood because things are looking up, and I'm just like, yeah, I need to get back on it. And one of the things is tracking the exercise.
The gadget can
So-
help. Yeah.
The gadget can help. So yeah, I'm debating that right now. I'm thinking of getting a red one with a red band, and my wife is like, "That's not manly." I'm like, "But it's red."
But it's red.
So we'll see.
I told you this last time. I like my Fitbit. It's nice.
The Fitbit before this guy was good, but this guy's garbage. He too quickly his battery wouldn't hold a charge, and he got all flaky and shit. And I'm done with it. So
I don't know. I love my Apple Watch.
To be
It does
honest,
all the things I needed to do and
When-
and more.
when I still had an iPhone, I was considering an Apple Watch. The price kind of scared me off, but I realized you can get older versions of the Apple Watch for not quite as much money. And then when I switched back to Android, I don't think you
Which,
can use an Apple Watch with anything but
which
an Apple
model
phone.
do you have, Jason?
This is actually the 6.
Is that the one that does the EKG and the
Yeah, it's the latest model that's out.
yeah?
So it does the EKG. It does all the bells and whistles. But I use it in the morning when I work out. It tracks, heartbeat, calories, and everything else while I'm doing that.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm torn as to which one I actually want.
If I had an Apple device, I would probably go with an Apple Watch. To be honest, they seem like
Siri-
they
the
seem
one
like
that-
solid devices.
The one on my cart is the Series 6, but it's not. I don't know if this is the one that does the heart rate.
Series 6 does the heart rate. Yes.
Yeah.
So does Series 5.
But do all of them do it? Do all the Series 6 do it?
As far as I know, yeah. Yeah, the big differences between the watches are the material it's made from and the size. So whether you get like aluminum or titanium.
Titanium.
Oh, has Apple upgraded the aluminum premium now to titanium?
There's aluminum, steel, titanium, and ceramic.
Can I get a titanium MacBook Pro yet?
No.
That might be awesome.
No,
Titanium
this
is
is
such a neat metal.
Yeah, this is the titanium Series 6 that I have.
I had a Fossil watch that was made of titanium years and years and years ago when Fossil watches were important and are cool, right? And it was just such a neat. It was so lightweight and yet so rigid. It was just such a neat feeling metal.
Yeah, for the number of times that I've like hit this off of things, you couldn't even tell. It's actually pristine. So
No, my Fitbit's mostly plastic and it gets beat up quite a bit, but it's survived and I haven't scratched the screen yet. Somehow. Anyway, Jason, you have any cool things to chat about today, and then we'll get into the news?
The news.
Nothing super exciting. I got a new toy that I haven't played with yet. I'll open it up and show the universe.
That'd be pretty cool if we're broadcasting to the universe.
We are. I didn't tell you I created that part. So this is my new toy.
It sounds weird over the mic, man. What is that?
That is a touring pie. It is a each one of these slots on the board.
Is it
You
for one of the
can,
Pi modules?
It's for the compute modules.
That's cool.
So it networks them all together, and
You're gonna have a Pi cluster.
you can create a Pi cluster. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I ordered it like forever ago, months and months ago, and they finally shipped. Turns out there was some sort of I don't know, microchip shortage or something.
It is, yeah, weird.
Plus there's some manufacturing capacity was down for some reason. Just excuses. I think they just wanted to like sit on the
Totally.
money for a while.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy. It's the government trying to prevent us from having fun.
So that showed up in the mail the other day, and I ran down to plug it in and check it out, and came to the realization that I don't remember where the hell I put the compute modules because I got them months and months ago.
I misplaced my compute modules. That's a totally like.
They're here. They're in this
that.
room. I just haven't found them yet.
They're on that shelf behind you. I can see them.
No, they're not on the shelf.
Right over there. They're right over your shoulder.
So, my room is I mean, it's cleaner than what it was.
Dude, I remember
boxes.
I remember your office at the college, and your definition of clean and organized is very different from mine.
Oh my!
I can walk through my room now. So.
Oh well, then it is much better than normal.
Yeah, little bit more cleaning, and I'll have a place for everything, and that's the plan.
I don't want you guys to think that Jason is a slob. He just collects a ton of stuff, and every available area is full of stuff that he's collected.
It sounds like Jason might be a slob.
Well, no, there's differences. In my opinion, the difference between a slob and just like a cluttered mess is the hygiene level, right? Like Jason is not a disease-carrying slob.
No.
He just
there's
has
lots of stuff, but it's
he
clean.
has a bunch of cluttered stuff, is all. And to me, it's
so
a little too cluttered.
I've been working on cleaning it up, and once I get there, it'll be nicer, and I'll be able to like move around in the room.
You'll fill it back up with stuff again later, I know.
So other than that, it's just been kind of work, learning a bunch of new CI/CD tricks, and building a bunch of basically building a new CI/CD setup for my job. So I got to play with. Have you heard of MinIO?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know if I can place it.
Apparently, it's an open source S3 replacement.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, I think I have heard of it then.
Yeah, so for I use GitLab. So when you have multiple runners and you're trying to cache things between jobs, because the runner, unless you set it up so that you're only using a single runner, which I don't want to do, I'm using like a cluster of them. The cache needs a shared medium to save files on, and it has to be S3 compatible. Well, I'm not allowed to use S3, so I had to find a solution. So MinIO is something I tripped over, and it works pretty well. So I've got that up and running now, and I'm quite thrilled with it.
It's pretty cool.
So that's been my latest fun.
I've heard that there's this big company that has a storage solution that has an S3 compatible API. Mark, have you heard of this?
I think the Crimson Haberdashery might have a commercial product for that. But there's also an upstream version of it.
Okay, can I do Docker run container and it's up and running? Because if not,
Ceph's not quite that easy, from what I understand. Mark might know more. I know he's been going through.
MinIO was.
I mean, it's easier than it used to be, but yeah.
See, Ceph would be designed for. I mean, that's an enterprise level product.
Stuff.
Yeah. That's I want a cluster of servers running Ceph so that I have S3 storage for all of this stuff that will never ever die. I don't care if MinIO falls over.
Isn't that what everybody
I just
wants?
stand a new one up and it rebuilds the cache. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
We use Red Hat on everything else.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah. No,
so that's been
fun. Do you need a TAM?
Sounds like it's overkill for your use case.
Probably.
I do not. They probably have a TAM. They're big enough that they probably have a TAM associated with them. It depends on which hat I'm currently wearing. I have I have expanded my role into a lot of different hats at the moment. So, the job has fired up quite a bit, and I'm pretty busy every day. I'm not quite wall-to-wall meetings yet, but I can feel that coming.
So I put some stubs in the meeting note, or the meeting notes, the show notes for MinIO and your compute board. If you want to throw in some links or something, that would be great.
Okay.
And I think we should move to the news. Otherwise, we're never going to finish the show.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the usual issue we have.
So let's do that. Here we go. All right, so our first news article for tonight. Maybe you guys have heard of this guy. Maybe I should open the article, right? Just so I can actually intelligently talk about it. I did actually read this article for a change. Maybe you've heard of this guy named John McAfee. Either of you know that guy?
Well, I know that's garbage software on Linux that kernel panics one of my customers on a regular basis.
Linux doesn't get viruses. Why would you run that?
Because you have an InfoSec team that says you must run AV, right? Anyway,
that's what ClamAV is for.
Yeah, right. It's what ClamAV is for.
Yeah.
So, John McAfee, who created McAfee Antivirus, which I did not know this, but I was reading. There's a link in the show notes to a Wikipedia entry for John McAfee and his life.
He looks kind of like a weird version of Al Pacino.
Kind of does. Anyway, did you know McAfee Antivirus was the first to market? I didn't know that. I didn't know that was like
I always thought it was Norton.
Yes.
So did I. I thought the same thing. I thought Norton was the first to market.
McAfee was first.
McAfee was first to market. Anyway, he wrote the initial McAfee Antivirus, right? He, of course, ran it for a while, but it was like 2 or 3 years or something, according to the Wikipedia article. And then he just basically said, I'm done with AV. I'm going to go do something else. But of course, the product already had a name, and the people he sold it to kept the name. So the name has endured. I guess for a brief stint, it was like Intel Security Suite or Intel Antivirus or something like that. And then McAfee was like, awesome! My name is no longer associated with the worst software on the planet, which is literally, he's quoted to say that. And then they changed it back to McAfee because it split back off of Intel. But anyway.
Yeah. So if you watch, there's a really, I recommend everybody watch it. It was such a great series called Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah.
Was it the last season or the second to last season? One of the seasons of Halt and Catch Fire is sort of a dramatization of the start of McAfee.
That's pretty cool.
Interesting.
That whole series,
it's based loosely on it.
That whole series was a dramatization of various different high points in the tech industry, and it is really an awesome show. I watched up to season 4, I think. I don't think I've seen the whole thing.
I like Halt and Catch Fire, and if you ever can catch this, I forget whether it was a movie or a miniseries, Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
It's another good one.
There was a movie.
So, seriously, though, if anybody wants to make a movie about a tech mogul's life, you should pick John McAfee, because if you read this Wikipedia article, it's like, holy crap, this man has done some insane things in his life, including ending up in a Spanish prison.
Yeah, good luck making that movie and getting a rating less than X.
Right. So, long story short, he was in a Spanish prison because he was apparently involved in a cryptocurrency, what do they call it, a pump and dump. I don't know what the specifics of a pump and dump scheme are, but he apparently committed one, which is bad in the U.S., and he fled, and he ended up in Spain, and he was in jail in Spain because he was caught there and put in jail. And I guess they finally had everything lined up to extradite him back to the U.S., and now, coincidentally, he's dead. I know that's like a very abrupt end there.
The internet is alight with conspiracy theories right now.
Oh, yeah, because apparently a few hours after his reported death, on his Instagram account, the letter Q shows up. For QAnon? At least that's what everyone's speculating.
Oh.
So who put it there or how, I don't know. But yeah, so now here we go, right?
I have seen some conspiracy theories come out of people that I didn't expect to see that from. So, all sorts of weird stuff. Everything from QAnon to he knows what actually happened to Epstein to, etc. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So if you want to read a real story of someone's life that involves murder and tragedy and lots of insane antics, go read the Wikipedia entry for John McAfee.
And allegedly 47 children.
That's not in. Well, maybe I didn't read that part of the Wikipedia entry. I didn't really read the personal section as deeply as I read some of the background. But
yeah, that's his personal claim.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the entry or not. But
yes,
it is.
He claimed in his Twitter feed to have 47 genetic children.
There you go. John McAfee. Gone. He was like 75 or something from what I heard on the news.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he lived a long life. But now
he did.
Dead in a Spanish prison. I don't want to sound like
allegedly
dead in a Spanish prison. So, yeah, apparently wanted for murder, although I don't know why. So, in 2012, he was accused, maybe not even accused. He was a person of interest in a murder investigation in, was it Belize?
Yeah.
His neighbor ended up dead, shot. And, of course, he fled the police when they tried to question him. So, you know, that doesn't look suspicious. He said that he's afraid of police and that he doesn't trust police. You know, whatever. I guess there's valid reasons for not trusting the police, but it sure does look suspicious when you flee the freaking country when they want to ask you about your neighbor's murder. But that was in 2012, but yet his history in the U.S. says that he was like the chairman of certain boards and stuff up as late as like 2019. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, he ran for president for...
president in 2020. Yeah. And 2016, apparently.
Did he run in 2020? Yeah, he ran. No, he ran in 2016.
It said 2016 and 2020 in the Wikipedia article. So yeah, pretty crazy story of his life. He is now, I mean, I'm going to say unfortunately, just because I don't want to see people die, right? So unfortunately, he's passed away. I'm going to say it that way. Some people may disagree with that particular summarization, but
well, I'm going to say it. McAfee might have been better than the one we got in 2016.
You could be right. It might have been a better 2016 through 2020 had we gotten John McAfee. Yeah, pretty crazy story though. So go read the Wikipedia.
Well, he was a libertarian, so you know, 2016 to 2020 would have been an awful lot of do whatever you want. I don't care.
Do whatever, man. I'm fine. Can I just go back to my?
Can you just like keep shipping me cocaine and we'll be happy?
Keep the coke coming.
What a crazy guy. So yeah, John McAfee's gone. The world is a little darker, I think. All right, so moving on to our next article. This is from Ars Technica. Rocky Linux, which we have talked about several times on this show since the supposed demise of CentOS, though if you really think it's demised, you should go listen to 2 shows ago when we had Rich on to talk about CentOS. It's not dead. Damn it.
Or CentOS.
CentOS. CentOS. CentOS. Anyway. Rocky Linux is apparently, they hit their first general release. So if you want a CentOS, Mentos, CentOS, whatever.
A rel downstream rebuild. And Alma had their production release some time back. So
they did.
Multiples now.
Yep.
In March, apparently.
Yeah, back in March.
So if you want a rel downstream rebuild, you've got some options now, which is good.
Indeed. Now, so this feels also reminiscent of like, I don't know, 10 years ago when there were like a dozen rel spinoffs and then they all sort of went away and then we had CentOS left. CentOS and Scientific Linux were really the two that were up at the end, and then Scientific Linux peeled off or fell off when Rel 8 came out, and now it's happening again. History will repeat itself. So anyway, Rocky Linux is out if you want to try it out. I haven't tried it or anything. I just found the article and thought it would be worth...
The circle of open source.
Yep.
The circle of life with CentOS Linux. No, the only thing that I hope doesn't repeat is that Red Hat doesn't do something stupid like decide to purchase a downstream rebuild again. And there were interesting technical reasons why we ended up in that business. A lot of them having to do with OpenStack, but
yeah,
I think in some ways we regretted that move. So hopefully, downstream stays community only.
I'm sure the CentOS folks don't regret it. Hey, we made them buy their own software. Go us.
That's terrible. That is terrible. All right. What's the next one I got here? Oh, Windows 11. Have you guys heard about Windows 11?
I
heard it was Mac
do I
OS.
care?
So first of all, Microsoft told us Windows 10 was going to be the last release of Windows, and it was just going to get like point release updates from here on out. And now there's a Windows 11. What the hell?
Yeah, Windows. So yeah, there was a lot of chatter about this. Windows 11 is nothing more than a point release of Windows 10.
It really is.
It's just they just put a new face on it. It's the same thing underneath.
Yeah.
And not only do I know that from like, unless they plan on making a lot of changes, the leaked version of Windows 11 that was out there, a number of security researchers grabbed it and ran all of their tools against it, and all of the stuff that's broken in Windows 10 is broken in the exact same way in Windows 11.
Well, I mean, of course it would be.
So this is pretty friggin' hilarious because I have my new work laptop that I nuked and put Fedora 34 on last week.
Yeah.
Windows 11, the desktop, it looks pretty much exactly like GNOME on Fedora 34.
Yeah.
So
that is tickling me a bit.
There's a couple things, at least the things I've picked up on from Windows 11 that are like earth-shattering in a Windows world. One of which, and get this, curved window edges. The corners are curved.
I have curved corners. My corners are curved.
So
my corners are curved.
So-
no.
So
Gnome.
my new job that I have, unfortunately, I was forced to take a Windows laptop because that's what they support and that's what they want us to use.
Uh-huh.
It's a laptop, so of course I hook it up to an extra monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, I have to disconnect my laptop to, go outside, have a cigar, or, whatever. And when I come back in, I plug it back in, and it is the most infuriating experience.
Oh, heck yeah.
Ever, because all of your windows that you had all arranged and everything all stay on the laptop.
My
And then you have to
personal
rearrange
machine,
everything.
the machine that I'm doing the podcast on actually right now, I've talked about this plenty of times before, is a Windows 10 laptop, and I have a dock that came with my Red Hat ThinkPad, right, which is USB-C. The Lenovo laptop that I personally own also has USB-C, so I thought, it's a Lenovo ThinkPad, Lenovo Legion, maybe the dock will work. The dock, like 90% works. Half the time when I plug it back in, when it brings up the displays, it'll detect one of them and not the other, and then it'll put the other one that it did detect to sleep.
Or you don't have it stuck in mirror mode? Because every once in a while I get stuck in mirror mode.
That doesn't happen. If it manages to detect all the displays properly when I redock it, it puts everything back where it was. If it doesn't, what I have to do is turn off one display, plug it in, then it'll detect the other display and come up. Then I can turn the other display back on again, and everything comes up, but it puts it all on that window. On that screen.
So
it's
I was flipping.
It's like my Linux desktop doesn't have this problem. I can undock it and redock it 67 times in a day, and it always put the windows back where they were supposed to be on the extended monitors.
And Linux is not ready for the desktop.
Right.
Right. So so this all comes up because I had heard about this a little bit previously, but I happened to be flipping through the Microsoft announcement today with all the bells and whistles and features and everything. And there was this lady that was explaining this new, absolutely breathtaking technology they have where when you're using your laptop, first of all, her explanation of why you have an external monitor was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. I can't exactly remember what she was saying, but I just remember banging my head on the
Is it for cat pictures?
No, it was like she had to just, and it was, you'd have to watch it. I couldn't even like react to it.
It was so stupid that you just
it was just
even...
like I just sat there staring like, what the hell? So she's like, yes, and when you pick up your laptop and you walk away, so this is apparently how this is going to work. I already see problems with this. So they're doing what they're calling some sort of a group or something, projects or something like that, where everything that's on your external monitor when you disconnect your laptop will automatically minimize.
Oh,
That's it. It just minimizes. Your laptop
That's-
stays the same as it is.
that's helpful.
Everything that was on your external monitor minimizes. Because, of course, you would never want to use anything that was on your external monitor while you're working away with your laptop. So I have no idea what happens if you open any of that up. But then she was going on about how when you plug your laptop back in, it'll automatically maximize everything exactly where it was in your monitor. And she's explaining this like it was a breakthrough in technology. And all I could do was sit here and think, I've had that experience.
Every
on my
other
Mac
operating system does this already.
Right. Like I can't remember when that didn't work. I haven't used Windows in so long that I know I had multiple monitors on my last Windows machine, but it wasn't a laptop. And that's
Right.
why I never had this problem.
Yeah.
So I never knew this really was a problem. So when I got the laptop and I started having this problem, I had to go look it up. I'm like, why isn't this working? And it was like, that doesn't exist on Windows. What?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that when I undock my laptop, it happily takes all of my applications and moves them to the laptop display. And when I redock it, and it works, that's the big if. If it redetects both displays, it puts them back where they're supposed to be, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what my Mac does.
The problem is, like, 98% of the time, it does not work properly, and it loses all the window placement, and it ends up just on the one main display, which happens to be the display I always have trouble getting it to redetect.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only neat thing that I really saw, like, in addition to that, was the grouping of... I'm not even sure how to explain it. I guess you like, sort of tag or somehow, like, the apps that you're working on end up in a project group of some sort. So that project group is remembered.
Okay.
So that the next time you open that project group, all those apps appear in the same place. But
I do that with the shell script on my Linux box.
yeah, I think Mac used to do something similar to that years ago, and it kind of went away after a while because they just went, oh, why don't we just make all the apps do that all the time? And
Weird.
That's just sort of how it's been.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I saw on the that my Twitter feed went nuts over is you're going to natively be able to run Android apps on your Windows 11 machine now.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
So apparently we have a new follower.
We do.
Anyway, so that means, of course, that now, in addition to all of the Windows malware that you can also get Android malware. Congratulations.
Huzzah.
That's just what we need. So yeah, I mean, the article that I linked here was basically just a stub for us to talk about Windows 11, but what the article's talking about is that people are alight complaining about this new feature of Windows 11, which is that it takes the start menu and puts it at the center of the taskbar instead of to the left-hand side of the taskbar where it's traditionally been by default, right? Yeah, so you can probably switch it, I'd imagine.
There's a button. You push the button, and it goes back to where it used to be.
I wonder if I can switch mine to the center right now on Windows 10. Then I'd have Windows 11, right?
If you have
Maybe I shouldn't mess with this.
If you
While we're
have,
live.
Insider,
crash Windows.
If you're a Windows Insider, which apparently is a thing you can just sign up for.
Yeah.
If you're it's a thing you can sign up for if your machine isn't controlled by the security mafia at your job.
Okay.
Then
you
get a bunch of these features. Well, I just know I can't even get
just
Windows
yes.
subsystem for Linux.
Just
so,
say yes. Say yes. You've tried.
Yes. Not this particular. I tried something that was useful and it didn't work.
Okay. Anyway.
But Insider allows you to get a bunch of these features in advance. Remember, I said it was a Windows 10 upgrade.
Yeah.
A point release rather.
Yep.
So that may actually be in there already.
Anyway, there's a screenshot in here that looks surprisingly like Mac OS's dock.
Or GNOME.
Or GNOME. No, GNOME doesn't put applications down there. GNOME puts them down the side. Unless GNOME...
No, the current version of GNOME puts them in the middle.
Okay. I didn't upgrade to Fedora 34 yet, so I don't have GNOME.
I have a fresh build from
GNOME
last
40
week.
or
Puts them
whatever.
in the middle. I mean, I think you can move it if you don't like it there. But I kind of like it there, so I'm cool with it.
It's funny that Apple, had a thought, 20 years ago? Is that when they put the dock in the center?
It was Mac OS 10, so
yeah.
I don't know exactly how long OS 10 came out.
Like late 90s,
well, we're
1999 I think it was, or 2000.
We just hit version 11, but it was 10. What was it? 10. No, we're at 11.5 2005. It's got to be. It's well over a decade. I can't even remember now.
Oh, since OS X came out? No, that was the late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
I remember where I was working when we got the first Mac that had OS X on it.
10.
No, it's OS X. It's X.
I didn't come in till Snow Leopard, so
no. So
before
anyway,
that, I was just looking at it from a distance, going, I really want one of those.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I'm very intrigued by the new M1s.
I bought one for my wife. It's really nice.
Yeah, I've heard they're great. I've heard that they rip through audio processing like nobody's freaking business, and they're getting there for video processing, and that really has me intrigued because my current quote-unquote gaming laptop does a decent job with video, but anything that would speed that up would make me very happy.
Yeah, everybody I've heard that has one says that they're unbelievably fast.
Yeah. And they're working through the compatibility glitches that they had at launch, right? Because certain applications just weren't ready for the ARM architecture, and they're getting there. So,
yeah.
All right, so I think we've gone on long enough, folks. This is probably going to be an over 2-hour show tonight. Sorry about that.
Are you?
You don't want to talk about the ransomware?
Okay, let's talk about the ransomware, but try to keep it under 5 minutes. How's that sound?
I'll keep it under 5 minutes. So it's so this is, wait, I got to do the Nate thing. This is an article from Hacker News.
The last one was from Yahoo Entertainment. I forgot.
See, wormable dark radiation ransomware targets Linux and Docker instances. So what's interesting about this is, to me anyway, is, it's sort of this whole, oh my God, there's going to be ransomware on Linux boxes. No kidding. This one specifically targets Red Hat and Debian distros. And target is an interesting designation here. The only reason they can say it really targets it is because it's a bash script that happens to use yum, and I think it uses apt for installing packages that are missing.
Now, here's the thing about this worm. For it to work, it needs to be on the system.
You have to be root.
And you have to be root.
Yeah.
So it's bullshit, because at that point...
Yeah, I was getting there. They're calling it a worm. There's no attack vector.
Yeah.
Like it's a script that is written that if you happen to run it as root, you're an idiot. But if you happen to run it as root, it will encrypt your system. Okay, wonderful. But then it's done. It doesn't go anywhere because there's no attack vector.
There's no propagation. How can it be a worm then? How can they call it a worm?
I don't understand how it's wormable. I guess anything's wormable though. So
yeah, with the proper automation.
Yeah. So the interesting bit, it's presented really wrong in this article. But the interesting part of it is that they're watching them real time update the script as they're, because they've found multiple versions of this at this point, and they're watching them write the script. The first couple versions of the script had built-in username and passwords that were hard-coded. That's starting to change.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see it being iterated upon. But trying to get a signature on that is going to be rough because it's bash.
Right.
Just change a character. There's no compiling.
Yeah, right.
Matter of fact, if you were going to do it and you were going to send it into the wild as a worm, and it was written in bash, I would have it rewrite itself and just put random characters in some place in the script. Poof, you changed the signature. Yay.
Right. But the point is, it's harmless unless it's run as root. So that either means, well, there's no either. It's harmless unless it runs as root. So you would need a moronic system administrator to actually make it do anything.
It's not harmless. If you run it as a regular user, I'm sure it will encrypt all of the files that you have access to. So it's going to harm you.
Okay.
But, so if you find it on your system, don't run it. But, it's not going to be able to do any system-wide damage unless it's running as root.
The point is, unless someone convinces you to run it, it's like it's not something that gets
Currently.
on the system. It's not something that gets on the system then runs itself.
Right.
You actually would need to have it on the system. It would need to have execution privileges.
Yep.
And then you would need to actually execute it.
Right.
So the article, clutches it. They kind of clutch their pearls and make a big deal out of nothing, because any of us on this podcast could write a script that is an evil, destructive worm
that has to be run as root.
has to be run as root. I mean, sysadministrators do that shit accidentally every
I have
day.
an evil worm
But
that runs rm-rf/, but you have to take this and run it as root.
Right. I would argue that you can't have a worm until you've added that part where it's going to send itself somewhere else.
Yeah. So
if it's not propagating, it's not a worm.
It might be malware, but it's certain.
Yeah.
It might be ransomware in the
right.
loosest sense,
So
it's not a worm.
I guess my question is: are they calling it wormable because there's a reasonable assumption that it could become a worm, or is it just for the headline?
I think it's the headline. I mean, it's
a moron wrote the article.
I mean, the Hacker News isn't usually bad with that. Like, usually they're pretty good. This time, maybe they were.
They failed.
Yeah,
so
they rolled their persuasion check and they rolled a 1.
Yeah, it's a script that's smart enough. It's a script that's smart enough to understand whether or not wget, curl, and OpenSSL are installed on the machine.
Ooh.
Why you need both wget and curl, I'm not sure, but whatever. And if they're not there, it installs them, and then it ransomwares things.
It's smart. It's intelligent. Yeah. It installs the stuff it needs. It's wormable.
Yes. Exactly. I mean, that's.
Yeah, you're right. So until there's a propagation factor, until there's a way that it can propagate itself, then it's
not the worm.
Right.
If you suddenly can't log into your system, try logging in with your username and mega password, since apparently that's what it's going to overwrite all the system passwords with.
Mega password. That's where I get all my files from. Mega.
Yeah, but it's worth mentioning that somebody at least is out there actively working on stuff like this. Why it's written in Bash, I don't know.
And the fact that it's attacking Docker has me a little intrigued.
Well, the Docker part of it, I don't know that I understand.
Yeah, I don't really see where they bring that out other than
like Bash happens to run in Docker sometimes, so maybe it could run there.
Again, the article is written by someone who doesn't get it. And you know what? If you're the person who wrote that article and you want to come on the Iron Sysadmin, that's why we're all idiots, and you've made and your article was brilliant, please get here.
Get here.
So there is a section in the article that talks about worm spreading functionality, but I don't have the time to read this on air.
No, I'm tired. We should be done.
Yeah. All right. So, this has been a fun show. Let me get back to my notes. Somewhere buried here in the pile of tabs that I've opened while opening up the stuff here. All right. Folks, it's been fun tonight. I hope you enjoyed Mark's story, the Ballad of Unclemarc. I'm going to title the episode that.
You should.
The Ballad of Unclemarc. If you want to watch us live, you can do so on the second and fourth Thursday, roughly, of every month. You can subscribe, of course, on both YouTube and do they call it subscribe on Twitch? I suppose so. Whatever. You can go do the Twitch thing. Follow. There you go. So you can watch this train wreck happen live every second and fourth Thursday of the month. IronSysMen.com will get you to both YouTube or Twitch. There's items in the menu there. You can go find it. If you want to join our community and give us direct feedback, you can do so on Discord. That's you can also find that on IronSysMen.com under the How to Reach Us section of the site. If you want to find us on the social media, you can do so on Facebook or Twitter. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast, and you should be able to find us. If you want to support the show, you can do so via Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysAdmin, or you can go buy merch on Teespring, teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. There's links for all this stuff in case you didn't catch all that or you're driving or something. And I think that's everything, folks. You guys got any final thoughts? I'm going to see if Sailor Moon finished printing. still
So
printing.
what
It
we need
hasn't-
is
it hasn't
what we
died
need
yet.
is a fourth window
It's still
that sits
going.
and watches your print while we're recording the show.
I'd buy merch for that.
It's still going. It's still printing. It hasn't died yet. It's further than it's ever gotten. It's gonna die as soon as we're off the show. No, as soon as I go to sleep tonight. If it's not done before bedtime, it's gonna fail the moment I go to bed.
Stab you in the back.
That's when it happens.
Yes, but of course it's going to fail the proper way, in which case it's going to spit out as much filament as it possibly can between where it was and the end of the print.
The one time it failed, right? So what happens is the drive gear wears through the filament, right? And then you end up with filament that's cut off, right?
Oh yeah, I've
Well-
had that happen with crappier filament.
Well, what happened is it wore it off, but then it continued to pull the filament through, and the filament ended up coming out the side of the extruder and made this big spiral coming off the back. It wasted, I don't know, maybe 3 yards of filament overnight. I'm like,
It's the 3D printer version of the milk
There-
went through up your nose.
There's some pretty crazy failure modes. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've seen some prints where all of a sudden mid print it decided that the print should be, I don't know, 3 inches to the left, and they continued printing.
just pile of spaghetti. Yeah.
And no, it kind of worked its way out to where it was printing 3 inches to the left. So you've got like perfect.
And
You
then
have
it
an
just
area
steps its
where
way
it was
over.
like it steps its way over, and it's like really weird looking, and then the rest of the print's on top, and you're like, what?
That's weird.
Okay.
How's that even happen? All right, folks. If you tuned in live, thank you for watching. We still got a couple folks straggling here, it looks like. Unless that's just you guys watching us, both Jason and Mark.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's it. We'll catch you next time, folks. Thanks for watching. And I got to find the right thing here. All right. Good night, everybody.
Not all.
Later.